It's all right. And back down to your hand again. Alternating from your right shoulder hand, left shoulder hand.
Right shoulder hand, left shoulder hand, right shoulder hand, left shoulder hand, right shoulder hand, right shoulder hand.
We're going to add a bit of rhythm to the dance. So I'm going to ask our handsome maestro here at the back for a bit of a tune. Not that. Okay, folks, to this we're going to perform what we call the kakaria, which is stamping your right foot in time with the music.
Step the right foot in time with the music.
Yes, lovely. Okay, now that you have the beat, I'm going to give you a little hint. Every time your foot hits the ground, the boy should drop your shoulder. Up, down, up, down. And need a bit of help, folks. So I'm going to ask you all to clap along.
Ready? Stop! Hokey, 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 line. Take time. Beat them, beat them,
Action, everybody, please take a...
Take them out!
New job, April.
Oh, very nicely done, everybody. I must say, for the first group of the day, you are the best we've had all day. Yes, you can give yourselves a clap. Alrighty, so we've shown you the first of our pastime games. Now we're going to show you the stick games. Now there are two versions of the stick games. Now we do have two versions, I said, but we're only going to show you one of them today. Now this is probably our most fun game. It is known as the Titi Torea. Yes, it is the short sticks. Now it's held here by a very lovely ladies. These are thrown from player to player like so. The objective being not to drop them. Yes, very nice ladies. Very nice. So during this item you will see the members of Malaya testing each other. In particular their hand-to-eye coordination. Because as I said, they throw it to each other, not at each other. So for you now, we have our most fun game, the Titi Torea, or the short. to do that to you. Alrighty, so we've shown you 2 pastime games, and we've shown you in asked you to participate. However, we're going to show you another item we know as the Weta Aringa. Now, Weta song, Aringa with hand actions. Simply an action song. The action song is a song with the actions to pick the words that we're singing. Now, we use a particular action known as the willy. We believe everything lives as its own life force. So we use the movement of our hands to depict life. Now for you today, we would like to offer you a beautiful action song, and yes, it is known as Tēnei Maka. Now simply translated, it means we are here to entertain you today. So have you enjoyed yourself so far? Yeah. Alright, very good. Alright, so for you now, we have Tēnei Maka. Time for our most famous item. For those of you who may know a little bit about rugby, you will know this particular item is called the haka. Now the haka is the male posture warner. So yes, it is performed by our men. However, you will also see it performed by us, the women, as well. And days of old, the haka was used to prepare for battle, mentally, physically, and also spiritually. Because battle for us almost always meant death. Now during the haka you will see several gestures. The first is the fetio. It is simply the protrusion of the tongue. As seen here, the protrusion of the tongue is only used by our men. The ladies we cannot use it. However, you will see our ladies performing the puka. This is the enlargement of the arms. Now together these are signs of strength, of power, of defiance. For you today, we would like to offer you our most famous haka. Yes, it is known as kamake kama. So please, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we also offer you our most serious item. For you now, Yes, you can clap now. And yes, on that very tiring note, it has brought us to the end of our show. Okay, and yes, even though it is the end of our show, it is not the end of your Manaia experience. Now for some of you, yes, you will be spending a little more time with the members of Manaia out in the Māori Gallery. There they will be standing next to some of our treasures. If you would like to ask questions about those treasures or about the members of Manaia, yes, that one in particular, the male one, yeah, then of course you may do so. If you would like to use your cameras on a very handsome, talented, very modest, shy warriors. Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Let's go. But of course you may do so. Have you enjoyed yourselves today? Yes. Well, before the members of Manaia leave the room, I would like to ask the Grand
Studies Department of the University of Auckland, where I also do a little bit of part-time teaching in Māori language and history, and I also on occasion do a little bit of independent research into New Zealand and Māori history as well. I'm actually a dormant PhD candidate at the moment, at home looking after my baby girl, but it's always a pleasure to get out and get involved and again come along and do things like this and talk to people about our wonderful history, which is really a very short and I would say quite explosive history in terms of the world scale of things. If you look at New Zealand, as far as the best evidence we have goes, New Zealand has only been inhabited by people for perhaps 1,000 to 1,200 years, and we've only had contact between the indigenous people here, Māori, and Europeans for around about 200 years, and yet a lot has happened in that time. So I guess I'm just here today to perhaps give you a little bit of a different perspective on New Zealand than what you might otherwise get on your travels here, and to answer any questions that you might have about New Zealand history, perhaps Māori society, or anything you might have seen in the museum today. I'll begin by saying that I'm a Pākehā or a European New Zealander, so I don't profess to speak for Māori, but I'm honoured to have actually been involved with Māori for a long time. I speak Māori, and I've been invited here today by by members of a local tribal group to speak on these matters. So I guess as we begin, does anybody have any pressing questions that they'd like to ask? Or any vaguely contrived questions at all, perhaps? Okay, well, I usually start in Southeast Asia. Does anyone know why perhaps I would start there? Yes, yes. The best evidence that we have in terms of where Māori came from is from Southeast Asia. And that evidence is from archaeology, or from the field of anthropology, from archaeology, from DNA, from the study of the history of languages or linguistics, from biological anthropology. And from this evidence we get a clear picture of a deliberate west to east movement throughout the Pacific. So the first settlement of the Pacific was from Southeast Asia, perhaps some 4,000 to 5,000 years ago. And from Southeast Asia they moved out through the island chains of New Guinea and New Britain, as far east as Vanuatu. And when they first left Southeast Asia, these peoples who have been termed Austronesians perhaps only needed rafts. But as they moved further on, the islands, which were in Southeast Asia very close together, became further and further apart. And this was conducive to these people, who later became the Polynesians, developing a better and better maritime technology, larger and larger craft, and also quite a remarkable navigational science, if you like. As they get further and further towards Vanuatu, they rested there for some time because the jump between Vanuatu and Fiji is some 500 kilometres. And by the time they'd achieved that, they had some quite impressive craft, and they had intimate knowledge of the stellar constellations. They were able to navigate their way and to measure latitude by the stars, and also read signs for finding land in the swells and in the clouds and in the currents, etc. I guess the reason I'm going back this far is that from the very early times of Europeans coming here to New Zealand, they were curious about some key questions about this country, and one of them was, who are these people that are here? Where did they come from? How did they get here? And when did they get here? And so these are the questions that have kind of occupied the minds of European ethnographers and scholars from those early times. And this pattern of moving east continues. They arrived in Fiji, into the central Polynesian area of Fiji, Samoa and Tonga. That is the birthplace of Polynesian culture. That is where Polynesian artefacts abound. That is where